Good afternoon, y'all. We are back with another edition of DNVR Rams Live. As always, I'm your host, Justin Michael. Football's back, baby. We're talking about day one of camp out there bright and early at Canvas Stadium. It was great to be back. I just love the vibe of football season, the sights, the sounds, pads. Hidden, it wasn't full pads, obviously, but even like just shoulder pads clanking a little bit, the sound of the ball popping, the smells of the football field. It's awesome. It feels like home. It's great to be back. We're going to be talking about observations from day one. I'm going to play some video of Jay Norvell. I'm also going to play some video from interviews with Jacob Gardner and Chase Wilson, a couple of veterans on the team. Both of those guys were preseason all-conference players, so it was great to catch up with them. We obviously talked to Torrey Horton and Jack Howell out at Media Days, so we had a couple of different guys today, which was great. Get a little bit of a different perspective. We'll have plenty of time to talk to Torrey, to BFN, to all those guys. I love getting to talk to an offensive lineman every now and then, even like a linebacker, Chase Wilson. We're probably going to talk to him plenty. But those guys in the trenches, the big uglies, they don't necessarily always get the shine, the run from the media. So it's great to get a guy like him on. I mean, he's the most experienced player in the entire Mountain West, which is pretty crazy. But it makes sense. He's a 4-year starter at this point. He'll now be a 5-year starter with his COVID year. Before I get into everything, we did have just a couple of quick news hitters. I'm going to hit more on these in great detail this weekend on an audio-only podcast. But there won't be a general release for single game tickets for the Rocky Mountain Showdown. I had been talking about this for a while, that it was likely going to be the case. I saw a mixed reaction. A lot of people just talking about how the simple economics of the situation kind of dictate it. There was obviously going to be a really high demand for tickets for this game, with it being the first RMS in Fort Collins since 1996. Season ticket holders, they had an opportunity to buy extra tickets on top of that. So, I saw some people upset as if this was CSU trying to screw over fans or like force you to buy season tickets or mini game plans. And I guess that is one way you can look at it. But the reality is there's just not that many tickets left. And the tickets that they do have left, they want to prioritize for season tickets for mini game plans. And that makes sense because every season ticket holder I know bought extra Rocky Mountain Showdown tickets. My brother, I think they bought 3 or 4, like on top of the 2 or 3 that they have. So, I mean, my family alone, that's like 6, 7 tickets. I know people that have double digits. It's going to be a very hard ticket to come by. I feel for the people that won't be able to go. That was always going to be the downside to the game being on campus, is just that there are less tickets available. I mean, you could sell 70,000 in Denver. You could get 80,000 in Denver these days. When you played in Boulder, it's like 55,000, I think, was standing room. Don't quote me on that. 41,000 at Canvas was standing room. I imagine they'll get every bit of that. It's definitely going to be, the highest attended game in Canvas Stadium history so far. So it's tough for some people. I get that, but it's also exciting that there's so much demand for these tickets. And as far as CU fans like overrunning the stadium, there's certainly going to be a Buffs presence. I mean, I think you'd be ignorant to think that there won't be, a couple of thousand CU fans there. That's just how it works. That said, I've seen some snarky people online being like, they're all going to buy the 2-game mini plans. There will be some that are willing to pay, the couple $100s for the multiple games. There absolutely will be some people that do that. I think the amount of people that would do so is being greatly exaggerated online. Maybe I'll be wrong come this fall. We shall see if that's the case. I'll admit it, but I'm not worried about that, guys. I'm not worried about it. I think it's going to be vastly predominantly CSU in that stadium on September 14th. But I just wanted to give you an update on that. Also on the recruiting front, and I'll go more in depth this weekend again. Clarence Taylor, 6'1", 165-pound wide receiver out of Pleasant Grove High School out in Birmingham, Alabama. He committed to CSU yesterday. 70 catches for 1,600 yards this past season, 25 touchdowns. Just absurdly consistent production. Averaged 23 yards a catch, 135 yards a game. Listed a 3-star prospect on 247 Sports. He's got offers from Memphis, from Vandy, from Cincinnati, Georgia Tech, a bunch of schools on there. I I really ruffled some feathers with my phrasing of my tweet, and I did not intend to. I said the number one wide receiver in Alabama commits to CSU. He is the statistically most productive player in the state. He's not the highest rated recruit, if that's how you want to phrase it that way. So I understand why some people I got confused by it, but there were some people that were downright like angry by it, as if I was intentionally trying to be disingenuous, which I didn't quite understand. But I think he's a really intriguing prospect. Again, we'll talk about him more this weekend. I appreciate everybody in the Toyota chat locked in with us. Shout out to all you great CSU fans. Appreciate you locked in. If you wouldn't mind giving us a thumbs up on YouTube, I certainly would appreciate it. I'll get to your guys' questions and comments as best as I can. Shout out to Charlie. He says, J Mike, be with you. Welcome to football season finally. Shout out my girlfriend. She'll love it on a long road trip. Shout out Charlie's girlfriend, man. Shout out to anybody that's a significant other that has to put up with the football sicko like us. I get it. It's not always easy. It's not always easy for those in our lives when they want to be normal functioning human beings that have hobbies and interests that, you know, go outside of our crazy little world of college football and college basketball. Bless them. They are angels for putting up with us, and make sure that you do something nice while you can. Because trust me, they're gonna be putting up with a lot come football season. Ant-Man, shout out Anthony Bars. He wants to know, when you get the chance, how did Jordan Ross, Armani Winfield, and Caleb Goody look? I am definitely going to get into all that, so please stay tuned. I don't want to lose the flow of the show, so I'm gonna get into that. I promise. Coach Ty, how confident are you guys for week one? I mean, they played Texas. They're 36.5-point underdogs. There's a reason that spread is what it is. How confident am I that CSU could cover that? Without a doubt. Do I think that it could be a game? Why not? It's early in the season. It's going to be hot. You can have some sloppy play early on. Wyoming had them in a one-score game late last year. They were susceptible through the air a little bit. Could I see a world in which some big offensive plays are made? Without a doubt. Could I see a world in which Texas just rolls the Rams? Yeah. Honestly, like how things go in Texas, outside of like major injuries happening and greatly like impacting your expectations or shifting what the expectations would be, you know, week one to me, you go out and you play that game, and it's, you know, you just kind of take it with a grain of salt. Now, obviously, if you win, like you're gonna brag for the rest of eternity. But you know, more than anything, like to me, it's kind of week two on is really the realistic timeline for like how I'm gonna gauge like the success of this team. I really don't know how much you can take away from if you lose big to what's probably one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, at least going into the year. I mean, Texas was my preseason pick to win the national championship, so that kind of tells you what I think of the Longhorns going into that matchup. We're going to get into thoughts from day one. I want to start us off here with some video of Jay Norvell kind of talking about day one, just thoughts on it. He talked about Braden Fowler-Nicolosi, who did have his fingers taped up on his non-throwing hand, cracked a fingernail, probably hit it on a helmet. So we talked about that. So we'll get that video here of Jay Norvell on day one, talking about first day of training camp. It's great to be back, man. I'm stoked.
Gotcha. All right, whenever we're ready.
Coach, thoughts on day one?
Just excited to get out here. We've had a great off season. Guys are bigger, faster than we've ever been. I think we're in amazing shape, and the guys are just excited to get out here and practice. So they're bouncing around.
It's like Braden might have had his finger. Did he hit it on a helmet? Maybe?
Yeah, the last week, the last workout before we finished summer, he chipped his finger, and he'll be okay. It's not serious, but we just want to be smart with him this week.
Coach, what are camp theme for you? Like, what's most important for you guys to get done between now and Texas?
Well, this is training camp, so we're training our habits for the season. So we're doing a lot of different new things. We're training them how to use their day effectively to have peak performance, and so there's a lot of new ways that we're looking at how we go about our business on a daily basis. So really doing that, and we want to use this 2.5 weeks to get them in rhythm for what we need to do this season. So that's the number one thing.
How big are these next couple of weeks in terms of getting used to the radio communications process, especially for the players?
You know, we've been using it. So we used it all spring. We were able to get it used in the spring, and it's great. You know, there's a lot of opportunities with that. We can communicate a lot differently than we always have in the past. And the quarterbacks are doing a nice job with it. But we're also, you know, getting used to the rhythm of playing that way. You know, we've been signaling for years, and it's hard. I still signaling, even though I'm calling it, I'm signaling it. So there's some changes, but the kids are getting used to it.
Do you think that'll be a benefit for you, just less to have to think about?
Yeah, I think it will be a benefit. I think it will, and there's some advantages. You know, we have the same communication system as the NFL, but we're different than the NFL. We play a different style of game in college, and so there's different things we can do that NFL guys really don't take advantage of.
Coach, I don't know who broke down the huddle before practice, but if I paraphrase, the theme was, we have the team, this is our time. Is there a sense here that year 3 is the year we see this program take the next step?
Yeah, it was Henry Blackburn. And yes, we got a lot of confidence in our team. You know, we were the young team for 2 years. We had a bunch of freshmen out here, a bunch of kids that looked like Doogie Howser, you know, and they're growing up now. You know, now we have more experience. You know, I think 17 of our 22 starters have over 1,000 snaps, which is a lot of snaps. And so we've got more experience, we're wiser, and we have a better plan.
That was Jay Norvell, obviously talking with us. Always appreciate the time that he gives us. Always very gracious, willing to answer questions. You know, some coaches, it may sound silly, but as simple of a question as me asking about Braden Fowler-Nicolosi's fingers being taped up could have really ruffled the feathers of some coaches. And, you know, Jay always really great with us, which is great. A couple of things that he said that stood out to me. Obviously, 17 players with 1,000 or more snaps. There is a lot of experience on this team that, if you believe that this team should turn a corner, much of that has to do with the continuity that's been obviously a big talking point of this show now for a couple of weeks. The depth behind them in certain spots, that's kind of a big question mark, and that's why these next couple of weeks are going to be really big for some of these first, second, third-year players, establishing the right habits. You know, he talked about being in training camp, just establishing those right routines, because you've got a really big month, you know, coming up. I talked about the importance of having a hot September. If you could go 3-2 or, you know, knock on wood, 4-1 to start the year, all of a sudden that opens up the possibility of, you know, really accomplishing some pretty special things. So we're going to continue talking about the takeaways from day one. I'm going to get to more of your questions in the Toyota chat. Real quick, I do want to talk about Lucy Nicotine, 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco free. Lucy is not like the other nicotine pouch company that's owned by Big Tobacco. They're like the mom and pop shops of pouches. The pouches come in a variety of strengths from 4 milligram all the way up to 12. I'm a 4 milligram guy. Keep it kind of simple. You know, 2 probably wouldn't be enough. 6 would probably be a little bit much at times. If you're not a pouch guy, they've got gum in 2, 4, or 6 as well. My favorite flavor is apple ice. Mango was fire. You can't go wrong with any of the fruit flavors, to be honest. They're all really, really good. Me and my guy Jake over on the DNVR Buffs Beats, we are big fans. If you want to level up your nicotine routine with Lucy, go to lucy.co/Rams. Use the promo code RAMS to get 20% off your first order. Lucy offers free shipping and has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. That's lucy.co and use that code RAMS to get 20% off and always free shipping. Here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age. Every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. I also want to shout out Toyota. Toyota, of course, a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness and perfect for Colorado. So whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the weight of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's just right for you. Maybe it's the 2024 Tacoma or the return of the iconic 2024 Land Cruiser. Toyota offers 17 models with available all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, like the Epic 4Runner. They also offer more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker to give customers numerous choices to reduce their carbon footprint. 16 different hybrid vehicles to choose from, like the Tundra iForce Max hybrid truck, Not to be outdone, Toyota SUVs take command on the road and on the trail, so you can explore the road less traveled without sacrificing smooth city rides in SUVs like the RAV4 and Grand Highlander. Toyota is a proud partner of CSU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. All right, I want to get into my observations and kind of build off more of what Norvell said. We do have a couple of questions here in the Toyota chat that I wanted to get to. D Mills wants to know, is Norvell on the hot seat if he wins a certain number or fewer games? I've said this a couple of times. I think the expectation needs to be a bowl game this year. You've got 7 home games. You've got both your rivalry games at home. You've got 8 first-year coaches on the schedule. I'm not saying that Norvell is going to get fired if they don't make a bowl, but I certainly think that the tensions from outside would start to be pretty tense. The intensity of criticism would definitely go up. It would be a pretty uncomfortable situation probably at that point. And obviously you have the administrative changes. I mean, there's a lot that's changed since he was hired. We'll kind of see what happens there. Chris wants to know any hint towards the new unis. Should get those in about a week, which I'm excited for. Hopefully that means we can play the new NCAA game with them. If you see some of the pictures from practice today, the back of the white helmets, they had stalwart on them, say Aggies in cursive on the bumper. We're getting some new Ag Day uniforms. I guess I'm just going to go out and say I didn't want to spoil it. We'll kind of see what happens there. With the jerseys and everything, I think they're still going to have the Sailor Ram logo as far as I'm aware. I don't think it's going to be major changes to the uniforms. We are getting new Ag Day uniforms, which is exciting. There might be some minor tweaks coming to State Pride too. I'm not 100% sure on that, but keep your eyes out. Let's get into some observations and some just thoughts on what we heard from Norvell, and then we'll get into what we heard from the players. Play some video of Chase Wilson. We'll also get some video of Jacob Gardner here, and he'll talk about the continuity within the offensive line, how different it is having 3 starters back compared to where they were at the last couple of years. BFN did have his finger wrapped on his non-throwing hand. We didn't really see him throw a ball for like the first 40 minutes. I was a little worried that I wasn't going to have anything to talk about in terms of observations, just because, you know, they're not even in full pads. So like, you kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt. It's day 1. Like there's plenty of time. But I wanted to have something to talk about. And if I didn't even get to watch QB1 throw any reps, it would have been kind of tough out there. But he's going to be fine. Like he looked fine throwing the ball. It didn't seem to be impacting him too much. I think they're probably just trying to limit how many snaps he's taking, let it heal a little bit while they have that time. You don't want it to become something that's persistent and nagging throughout the course of the season because you decided to go gung-ho on day 1 when it really was not necessary. I'm not worried about Braden at all. I watched a lot of offense today, admittedly, so I'm going to try and lock in a little bit more on the defensive side tomorrow and the trenches a little bit as well. Admittedly, like until you're in full pads, there's only so much you're going to take away from the individual drills, especially defensively. Like you can kind of gauge how guys are moving, obviously, you know, how in shape they might look, that type of stuff. And again, I don't want to be unfair on day 1 and draw false conclusions because I watched a guy, you know, take like 2 reps or something in the corner. Some people do that in this game. That's just not how I choose to operate. I'm going to keep you guys as informed as possible. I'm going to give you guys as much detail as possible. I also am going to do everything I can to not misconstrue things, to not try and be over dramatic or make something seem like it's a bigger deal than it is. You know, like certain guys are going to miss practices every now and then. Certain guys are, you know, going to mess up a rep here and there, or they're going to do well in a rep there. I'm not going to crown them preseason all conference because they make 1 catch or 2. Chris Pratt says, hot take, Sailor Ram lids are better than the bone horns. I love the bone horns. They're nostalgic. I kind of wish they could have both options, especially on the video game, but I'm with you. I think that the current iteration of Ag Day uniforms, and we'll kind of see how they get changed, are much sharper than the previous ones. I understand they have a little bit less orange and green than the original versions when they looked like literal pumpkins. Well, I mean, the very first version was disaster. It was like still part green and gold, part pumpkin and alfalfa. It was not a good look, and then it eventually turned into a straight pumpkin look. The ones they have now are very, very clean. I'm a big fan. I'm interested to see kind of what happens there. Getting back to the observations, I think the biggest takeaway from today is that this team passes the eye test in terms of athleticism and size. I've talked about that a lot on the show, so it wasn't surprising, but it's one of those things to see it on paper. It's another thing to see it played out on the field. And when you look at guys like Jackson Warren, who's every bit of 6'7", I mean, I posted a video of him on DNVR Rams Twitter. I mean, the dude looks like he should be playing, four on Nico Medved's basketball team, not out there playing tight end. But he is going to be just an absolute mismatch for Mountain West DBs. I mean, you throw the ball 9-10 feet up in the air, let him go get it. Some of these 5'11" corners, like, what are you supposed to do with that? I don't know. I mean, he moves too well for linebackers. He's far too big for a lot of these corners. I think once they get their rapport established, there's a possibility of him really having a breakout season in year one. And it's hard to do so as a tight end, but I'm hearing a lot of good things about how he is kind of adapting behind the scenes. He's a former quarterback, which doesn't hurt his cause just in terms of picking up the playbook, being able to have an understanding of what the offense is trying to accomplish at any given moments. What made Dallin Holker so special is that guy was just so natural out in space. Like he did a great job of finding ways to get open, of sitting inside coverages, of moving when Braden had to roll out and just finding a space and setting down, giving the QB an option to dump the ball off of. That's the type of stuff that takes time to develop, that kind of sixth sense with each other. You start to know what they're going to do before they even do it. But in terms of athleticism, he passes the eye test, man. I'm really excited. Looks like a natural pass catcher. He is a guy that is fairly new to the position. I mean, he's a converted quarterback. But I think Jackson Warren's going to be the real deal. And what's exciting is they've got a lot of size in that room, even outside of him. You look at a guy like Mason Muau, who signed in the last class. I mean, he walked past me. He's every bit of 6'4", big old arms. I mean, they have a level of, like, I don't know, intimidating. Like, does that make sense? Like they're much more intimidating than they had been in previous years, top to bottom, whether it's the receiver room, whether it's the running back room, the tight end room. They just have so many more options. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're more athletic. And I'm really interested to see how it pans out. I will say it does seem like Jackson Warren is the clear cut number one tight end going into the season, even though he just got here. I mean, reading between the lines, that was always pretty obvious. The staff's been talking him up since he signed, but I just wondered if coming in late would kind of slow down the process a little bit, but it's been absolutely fine. He lives with BFN. That's great. I think they're going to have a lot of time to work together. I'm really excited to see what he brings to the offense, because as good as Dallin was, and he was obviously a stud last year, a Mackey Award semifinalist, there are just going to be things physically that Jackson Warren can do that other guys aren't going to be able to. And I think that's the case with a lot of these receivers. I mean, Torrey Horton looks great. He looks like he's put on some muscle. Jay Norvell, he said out at media days that Torrey had put on about 10 pounds of muscle. I would agree. He looks thicker. I mean, Dylan Goffney, you look at that dude's calves. He's a unit. He's every bit of 215. Dylan Goffney's got great size. Armani Winfield, maybe a little bit skinnier than those guys, but just the way that he moves is different. And there is only so much that you can take away from watching, the individual drills portion of a non-full padded practice. Like, I don't want to get carried away, but there are certain things you can see just with how fluid guys are, with the way they're getting out of their breaks, with how fast they are. And when you watch an Armani Winfield, when you watch a Torrey Horton, they're moving differently than everybody else out on the field. A couple of the young guys that I think are really encouraging. I posted a video of Caleb Goody. I had multiple people come up to me and rave about Goody, talked about how he had an awesome offseason, said he's not even close to the same player that he was a year ago. He looked really good. Jordan Ross, he looks the part. I didn't get to focus in on Jordan Ross quite as much as I would have liked to. He was on the far side of the field from me a lot of the time, but you can just see with the way he moves. Again, it's similar to Armani Winfield. Like, the way those guys come out of their cuts, the way they're coming off the line of scrimmage, it just looks a little bit different than everybody else. And you've got to credit the staff. You've got to credit the staff for bringing in a different caliber of athlete than what we had seen across the board. And this team just looks so much bigger, so much more athletic. They've got a lot of experience, which is encouraging. But I think that the fact that they passed that eye test was really encouraging, because there are times, especially with transfers, where they're coming from like a junior college and, you know, they're listed at 6'4", 230 or whatever. And you show up and they're like 6'2.5", 225 on a good day. Yeah, I don't think that's the case with these guys. The young guys look as athletic as advertised, and Jackson Warren looks, you know, as big and as strong as advertised. Kind of getting into the quarterbacks again, you know, it's limited sample size, only so much that you can take care of. Darius Curry, good Lord. Darius Curry throws a really pretty ball. He is small. I will say that. He's definitely one of the shorter quarterbacks I've seen in the room, maybe ever. That said, the fact that the staff talks about him the way that they do, the fact that he had as much success as he did in a really high level high school program, it almost makes me believe in him that much more. Like, he's got that Kyler Murray-esque game. He can run around a little bit. He's got a rocket of an arm. He's very accurate. The ball looks gorgeous coming out of his hand. We only saw him throw a little bit today, but I'm interested. I'm really interested to see kind of what he brings to the table. And just stylistically, it's going to look a little bit different than, you know, BFN or Jackson Brousseau or even, you know, Pahalski or Pooler. I'm curious to see how that situation pans out, because I could see a world in which he ends up being, you know, everything he was hyped up to be, just this freak athlete with a beast of an arm that, for whatever reason, got overlooked by a bigger school. I mean, it's because he's short. Like, if he would have been, you know, 2-3 inches taller, he probably ends up being a USC or something like that. I mean, when you watch him on film, when you look at the type of plays he made athletically in a very, very highly touted, you know, football conference, I think he could be the real deal. I'm really excited about a couple of these freshmen. Now we're a long ways away. I don't want to get anybody, you know, overexcited. I mean, if everything goes to plan for CSU, you know, BFN's the starter for at least the rest of this year, hopefully for next year too. And then you're, you know, competing, going for championships, and it's, you know, not even a long time till we have to worry about that. But, you know, I know that the people want to know, how do the freshman quarterbacks look? He's intriguing. We're going to get to some video here of the players. We're going to talk about what we learned from Chase Wilson, from Jacob Gardner. I do want to shout out the Circa Sportsbook real quick. The Circa Sportsbook is awesome. It's run by the same amazing people that run the Circa Resort and Casino out in Vegas. If you guys follow me, you know that's my mecca. I love that place out there a couple of times a year. No better spot to watch a game. They've got affordable food. It's just awesome. But what's great about the Circa Sportsbook, you're going to get some of the best splits around. They're highly transparent. They don't limit your winnings. You know, other places you might get more like -115, -120 splits, whereas Circa, they're striving to hit you with that -110. They don't limit you when you start winning. Their customer service is awesome. Download the app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. Guys, life can be chaotic. It's been a long day. I'm not going to lie. It's great to have football back, but we got relatives visiting. You know, I'm about to go on vacation. I've got a lot to do before I do that. I've got, you know, work I've got to get done. I've got, you know, things to pack, things to clean. It's stressful. I can, honestly, if I let it, I can let it put me in a pretty poor mood, be pretty cranky, just not a good vibe. And that's not what I want. I want to be a chill dude. I want to have a chill mindset. And that's what Coors Light encourages. Sometimes I got to go outside. Sometimes I got to take a couple of deep breaths. Sometimes I got to do some push-ups or, you know, get a sweat going or something like that, whatever it is, put myself in the right state of mind. Then when I'm kicking back, when I'm chilling, when I'm relaxing, crack open that ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies. When you embrace a chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Sometimes I mispronounce something so bad it even catches me off of guard. Ooh, that was rough. All right, we're going to get into these videos here. I do want to get to some of these comments in the Toyota chat. Speaking of eye test, how does this year's O-line look in size compared to last year? I mean, a lot of them are similar, and we're going to get to that video of Jacob Gardner kind of talking about the continuity within the team. I mean, you have 3 of the 5 starters are back, so a lot of the unit looks the same. Even in the 2 deep, a lot of these guys have been in your program. You know, Tanner Morley is only his 2nd year, but Aaron Karras, you know, it's like his 3rd year in the program. A couple of these guys have been around, but I think they're going to average around 6'5", 305 with the 2 deep, which is light years above what it was a couple years ago under Adazio. I mean, legitimately, it was more like 6'2.5", you know, like 285, 290, if that's probably more like 275 with some of those guys. So they look the part. Like, they look the part. I've heard a lot of good things about some of these guys that have been in the program and had some time to develop. There were some bumps along the way. Obviously, 2022 was a train wreck. Norvell joked they couldn't even find 22 guys to play in 2022. But I'm pretty encouraged by the offensive line. And that's one of the reasons I think that the offense has a pretty good opportunity to build off of what they did last year. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world out wide. You can have a quarterback with a great arm. If you can't protect them, none of it matters. I think the O-line is going to be pretty good. We're going to play a video here of Jacob Gardner talking about that O-line continuity. I have it in the notes as Chase Wilson, so hopefully I don't throw off Alyssa, the producer behind the scenes, but this feels more in line with what we're talking about. So if we can get that video here of Jacob Gardner talking about the continuity within the offensive line.
So, what's it like starting this camp with 3 returning starters as opposed to last year when it was you and a whole new crew?
It's a lot easier. I mean, we're able to put combos together easier. We're able to communicate. We're on the same level. It doesn't take as much, you know, explanation for best to get certain ideas through us. So, you know, knowing how each other play is, I mean, it changes the game in terms of how we're able to move people off the line and what we expect from the running back and what they can expect from us as well.
So I know the number we took away, you know, like the sacks from the first year allowed to last year and what a big improvement that was. This year, Jay's talking about the run game. You averaged 3.3 last year. He wants better than 4. What do you do as an offensive line to work towards that goal?
A big thing, at least for me this offseason, was understanding leverage. I know it sounds obvious, but it's harder to do than you know, to say it. Getting under people with my guards is super imperative to being able to get guys off the ball for gaps to open up. I'd say that's one of the biggest things. We've also put more time and effort into practice. You know, in terms of running things instead of screens, it's, you know, it's run emphasis. It's we're just putting a lot more effort into it, and we want to see it change. So,
is that an easier goal to accomplish when it's like you, Drew, and Savion all have a working relationship together? You can factor in 2 guys. It's easier to reach that goal.
No doubt, no doubt. We have our own communication system. Being able to talk to Drew in kind of like our own language, and I know how he likes this, and I know how I like it. Let's figure something out. It's not this brand new thing of like, how do you want to play this? It's, I know how you play this, and we can work better now.
We hear all about the air.
I think that continuity is going to be massive for the offensive line this year. It's great to have Jacob Gardner and Drew Moss back, Savion Henderson at left tackle as well. Again, like, you play some tough games. I am interested to see how this unit handles the size and athleticism of Texas. But I'm pretty cautiously optimistic about the potential of this unit. And if they can run the ball with a little bit more consistency than they did last year, if they can build up what they established late in the year, I think it's really going to help this offense go to the next level. Shout out to my guy, John, in the Toyota chat. Another Bear Creek Bear. Love to see it. Some saying Bear Creek, the ultimate local feeder program for CSU. I mean, Justin Holland, the highest rated recruit in program history. Jake Bennett recently went on to be in the Hall of Champions. You know, Barry Wesley and BC Johnson both went to the NFL. I don't count. I cover the team. I'm just a podcast story, but I like to put myself in the same conversation as those great Rams. But shout out to my guy, John. I appreciate all other Bears and Rams support in the show. We're going to get some more video. Here's some more player video. This is Chase Wilson on being a leader. I asked him a little bit just how different it is going into fall camp, as a 4th, 5th year guy in the program versus being a wide-eyed freshman. I talked to him about assuming, the more vocal leadership role. I remember back in 2022, DaQuan Jackson was really hyping up Chase as the next guy, and he had an awesome game on senior day to close out the year, had a couple of sacks, like double-digit tackles, and then last year really broke out onto the scene. I was one of the top 3 leading tacklers in the conference. He is switching roles on the defense this year. Him and Boom Jock will be the linebackers, but he's going to have a little bit of a different role. And he talks about that. But here is Chase Wilson talking about being a leader and talking about how things are different as a veteran versus being a freshman. Chase, just thoughts on day one?
It's great. So good to be flying around with the guys again. All glory to God for this beautiful day that he's made for us, and just great to be out here with the fellas again.
How different is it being out here as a senior, a starter, a guy who's been here versus, being wide-eyed as a freshman?
It's extremely different, and I think even when I came in as a freshman, just kind of the team that we've made and the culture that we have is extremely different from when I initially got here. I'm really proud of it, and I'm really blessed and proud to be a part of this team.
I remember back on senior day in 2022, DaQuan Jackson kind of talking you up, how you're next, you had a big game. Do you feel like you've kind of assumed that role that he was talking about back in the day?
Yeah, absolutely. D-Jack was a great mentor for me and still is to this day. I actually reached out to him last night. He put me on those little toe spacers that some of the guys in the league do, so I ordered some on Amazon last night. But yeah, D-Jack's been a great mentor for me, and I think throughout my life he will continue to be that. So,
what makes you, obviously it's just start camp, but why is you optimistic about this team, this group?
I think just going back to what I said, like the culture, I think these guys really possess a genuine love and care for each other, and you can see it on day one. I mean, from your guys' perspective, I think that's the best day one of fall camp that I've ever seen out of a team. Guys are flying around. There's no lull in any energy. There's no lull in competitiveness, strain. So that's always good to see.
Jay and some of the guys have talked about just the size, strength, speed numbers across the team. From your perspective, is this like the biggest, most athletic group you've been part of?
Absolutely. A lot of credit is that to Coach Simmons. He put together a great plan for us this past winter and the summer. Got guys a lot stronger, a lot faster, and a lot of credit to the teammates because they really invest themselves in his program, and it showed. So.
It seems like the vets were really leaning into teaching today. Jack was out there teaching, Tori, you. What's that like for you guys to be able to teach the younger guys?
It's honestly like one of the most rewarding things I think in sports, especially now as an older guy, being able to pass on the knowledge I've accumulated for 5 years and some of these other guys to help bring everybody up, right? It's not about gatekeeping information or trying to be better. You want your young guys to be better than you when you come back in 5 years in most teams, right? So that's kind of what we want as a group, and I think we definitely have that.
Soft-spoken Chase Wilson, really humble, really gracious individual, really talented dude as well. As Rich Nicolosi says, Chase is a stud and looking bigger. Great to see Rich in the Toyota chat. Appreciate you tuned in. I'm really excited about this season, guys. Like, it's day one. You got to take everything with a grain of salt, but there were a couple of more quotes from those guys that I wrote down that I didn't put in the video. One of the things we've heard pretty consistently from the veterans, whether it be Jack Howell or Torrey Horton out in Vegas, out in media days, conversations with, BFN and some of these other guys, the accountability level has changed from a player leadership standpoint. A lot of these guys have been in this program for 3, for 4, for 5 years in some instances. They've been through hell together. They're tired of losing. It's one thing to just say it. I mean, every team coming off of a losing season at the beginning of the year, they're going to say, we did things wrong last year. We're going to do things right this year. And I understand that. I will say there is a different vibe with the program right now, just in terms of the culture. I mean, when practice ends, guys aren't rushing to get out of there. They're working on individual drills. I mean, you see people like Kennedy McDowell and Boom Jock working, together. And that was something they used to do behind the scenes with Mo Camara. I mean, you see the receivers continuing to put in work. Again, like, that's what they should be doing, but that wasn't always necessarily the case with this program. And I'm encouraged that there's a lot of really level-headed and talented guys at the top of this program to kind of guide the way. People like Chase Wilson, people like Jacob Gardner, Torrey Horton, Jack Howell. I mean, I can go on and on. Blackburn, Patty Turner, BFN, all of them. I get that there is a lot of unproven depth at the moment. I think a lot of people in the two deep are relatively unproven, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And, I've had some questions. How good can this defense be? Plus 36 against Texas has D Mills scared in the Toyota chat. I get it. Also, they could lose by like 40 to Texas, and that wouldn't really shift my opinion that much of what this team can be or should be. I think Texas is probably one of the top 3 or 4 teams in the entire country. I think competing against them would be validating in a major way. And obviously, if you could find a way to make history and win that game, it would be up there with going to the U of A in 1994 and, taking down a team that was widely projected to be a national champion that year. It'd be like beating CU in 2002. I mean, it would be one of the biggest wins in school history if you were able to pull it off, with an opportunity to potentially pull off another one of the biggest wins in school history a couple weeks later when CU comes to Fort Collins for the first Rocky Mountain Showdown locally since 1996, or at least in this portion of the state. Obviously, the game has been played. I really like the mentality of a lot of these guys at the top. I feel like they're very genuine. It's not just lip service with them. Their actions speak much louder than their words. And, one of the things that stood out to me is, and I didn't put this in the video, but Chase got asked essentially, like, what is the expectation this year? Like, do you guys believe that you're going to turn a corner, that you're going to be a championship contending team? And Chase said, yeah, the expectation is there, and talked, a little bit about being confident. And one of the TV reporters essentially tried to get his clip, and I'm not saying this trying to take shots. They're just doing their job. We have completely different jobs. They're just trying to get their little, clip for the 9 o'clock news. I get it, where, you get the veteran players saying it's Mountain West championship or bust, we're going to win. And internally, they should have those type of lofty expectations. But I liked that Chase Wilson essentially refused to say exactly what their goals are. It's like, so a lot of our goals are a little bit more internal. And to me, that's a sign that they're not just trying to make headlines. They're not just going out and saying things to say things because that's what they feel like they're supposed to do. They know that they should have been a bowl team last year. They know that a handful of plays prevented them from achieving what they should have. It left a sour taste in everyone's mouth, mine included, yours included. If it bugged you, just imagine how it felt to actually be on the field for that. I feel like these guys get it in a way that maybe some teams in the past didn't. And I also think that it probably took a whole lot of heartbreak and a lot of, some of these players having to go through some really tough losses over the years for it to really click. And I'm hoping that we see it translate, into more success. The fact that these guys really understand just how slim, the margin is between winning and losing. Like, you're legitimately 4 or 5 plays going differently last year from being at least a 7-win team. Instead, you're sitting at 5-7, watching everybody else play football because you're home for the holidays. And I don't think that the expectation should be Mountain West championship or bust. I think that we kind of have to get into the season and see how things start going. I've talked about how the path is there to make some noise, especially if you can start hot in September. I don't want to make the whole spiel again, but I think that the vibe of the program is in a good spot right now. Maybe uncharacteristically so for a team that had as rough of a year as they did last year, at least with the way that the season ended. I mean, they made a lot of progress. But I just mean, like, that season, that the way that season ended, the way that loss occurred after already losing the way that you did against UNLV, against CU. I mean, that could have been a program breaker. Like, you could have totally lost the locker room. Obviously, you lose a couple of guys to the portal, but I mean, the main leaders of this team, they chose to stick around, and I think it's going to pay off this year. I do. Again, like, I'm not saying they're going to win every game they play. I'm not saying, they're going to be in the playoff, but I do think the opportunity for this team to greatly outperform anything that we've seen in recent years is there. Now that they're going to need the defense to be a lot more consistent, and they're going to need some guys to step up that are rather unproven right now. And until we see it, we'll kind of have to gauge that like as with a grain of salt. We're kind of in wait and see mode with some of these guys. Offensively, I think they can be great. I think they can be the best in the league. I mean, one of the best offenses in the country. They already were a year ago, but if they can run the ball with more consistency, the sky's the limit. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I won't have another live show for a week because I will be on vacation, but I'll be back next Saturday as well at 1 p.m. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'll post about it. Don't worry. I'll keep you in the loop. I will have more audio-only podcasts that come out between now and then. Don't worry. I'm not just going to leave you hanging for a week without content. Not the most ideal timing in terms of having this family reunion, but, got to see my grandma while I still can. Not sure how many of these family trips I'm going to have left. And honestly, like life's going to be pretty chaotic for the next 9 months. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be everything that I love, football and basketball, as much as I can consume. But, the months go quickly. And all of a sudden, I realize like I haven't seen anybody that I love in my life in 3.5 months. That happens pretty regularly to me. So I'm looking forward to having just a little last off-season hurrah. And then, we're going full balls to the wall for the next 6-7 months, all CSU football, all CSU basketball all day. It's going to be awesome. All kinds of written content coming your way. We've got features. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, on YouTube, on everywhere that you consume content. Before we get out of here, a couple more questions in the Toyota chat. Looking ahead, what does the practice schedule look like? When do they put on pads, open scrimmages, enjoy your family? It's so important. Much love. First scrimmage will be next Wednesday. So I will unfortunately miss that one. Then it will be the following Wednesday after that. And then I think it's like the following Saturday. So essentially you have one a week for the next 3 weeks. They'll be putting shells on in a couple of days. You go full pads, usually around day 4, day 5. It kind of depends on every team, but that's roughly kind of the timeline of how it plays out. You kind of start with just shoulder pads and shorts, then you go to shells. Then eventually you work in some full pads. Then you keep it light. You do some non-contact days as well, but you got to condition yourself for contact before the season. I can't wait. I'm gonna have more content this year than I've ever had from the DNVR side. I mean, I took over obviously in 2019 over here, lame duck Bobo year. Then we have 18 months of wonkiness with the pandemic, followed by Steve Adazio, followed by the mass exodus. Followed by last year of it finally looking like this team was going to turn the corner and unfortunately kind of falling flat on their faces in the end. But I think your patience is going to be rewarded. Ram Nation, I think finally we're going to see this team win some games that matter. We're going to see this team score some points. We're going to have a little bit of fun, and I'm going to be there for it all. We're going to have all kinds of live shows, at least 3 a week, potentially more, depending on kind of what's happening, depending on how much winning is going on. I mean, the more they win, the more we can do. That's really how it works. So I can't wait. I appreciate everybody that's locked in with us in the Toyota chat. I appreciate everybody listening on the audio only side down the line. You guys make all of this possible. Without your support, I would not be able to do this. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.